the Rise Up See Red podcast, all about the Arizona Cardinals and the NFL, featuring insider and outsider perspectives. Enjoy the best hour of Cardinals talk on the web. Now here are your hosts, Jess Root and Seth Cox.
Hello, Arizona Cardinals fans, and welcome to the latest edition of the Rise Up See Red podcast, the best hour of Cardinals talk on the web. I'm your host, Jess Root from CardsWire.com, USA Today's NFL Wire site, episode 787. This is a special guest. We have a special edition of the show as we bring on one of the sister that the show, the podcast recently moved to the Bleav network, and one of the hosts of the Bleav in Rams podcast is Erin Coscarelli. Erin, it's been a week, hasn't it?
Yeah. Yes, it's been an off season, really. It's nice to speak with you and kind of give you some insight on covering the Rams last year and now entering this off season, and how the anticipation for your NFC West rival will look. I want to say we faced you guys in week 6, right? So
yeah, week 6 and week 10. Week 6 and week 10. And Mike LaFleur, a familiar face for you guys over there, he was asked about Myles Garrett trade, and he honestly said, it's like, right now it's not even on my radar. And reporters were kind of pressing him like, guys, I've got my team. I've got to focus on my team. I've got to worry about install. I've got players to teach a new system. Myles Garrett is a worry for week 6.
Yeah.
And so
right.
he had a boring answer for that, but for the rest of us out in the talking heads and the media analysts and in the internet world, it came as a shock. Well, one, for you, did this trade come out of nowhere?
Yeah, we really didn't see. I mean, speaking just for myself, perhaps some of the insiders may have thought this could have happened. And I know, since free agency, when the Rams acquired Trent McDuffie, Les Snead had always said free agency and players with proven performance ability seem to generate higher than just draft capital, which of course obviously lends to the phrasing F them picks. And Trent McDuffie coming over from the Chiefs alongside Jalen Watson was really one of the biggest needs for the Rams, certainly when it came to their secondary and sort of depth at the cornerback position. So we kind of always knew Les Snead valued the free agent market over the draft. And now I want to say 9 of 11 first rounders in the Les Snead era have been sort of dealt or moved away from. And you get, that first round, I want to say it was the Rams' 29th pick, and they get and acquire Trent McDuffie. And then they use that 13th overall pick during the draft to get maybe perhaps the heir apparent in Ty Simpson. But no one really saw, at the very least, we always kind of felt they needed somebody on the defensive line, perhaps. And we also thought maybe Jared Verse might have been a prove-it year for him. He obviously was coming off a Rookie of the Year campaign his first season, but then slightly regressed. But young, 25 years old. And then to sort of now offer him up, in a trade, giving up Jared Verse and 3 draft picks and now acquiring Myles Garrett from the Browns just feels like this team has so much invested in what could be Matthew Stafford's last year. Certainly Stafford, Devontae, Puka. It just seems like the whole team is very stacked. But did I see this coming? Again, glimpses of it with Max Crosby potentially being discussed. I didn't really feel like the possibility of Myles Garrett coming to LA could actually be a reality until, a few days ago when the trade was announced officially.
How much better is this Rams defense swapping out Verse, who, by the way, is a wrecking ball of an edge guy, to go from Jared Verse to Myles Garrett? That defensive line already, between Byron Young and Kobe Turner and Jared Verse and Braden Fisk, that's a very, very good group. And now you swap out Jared Verse for two-time Defensive Player of the Year, reigning and Defensive Player of the Year, 23 sack, averaging 16 sacks a year. How much better is, like, I guess for right now, how much better is Myles Garrett than Jared Verse? Because Verse is still a very good player.
Yeah, of course he is. And on Tuesday, we were there during the official press conference, Myles Garrett with his new coach and his new GM and Les Snead and Sean McVay. And they, both those guys, deep reverence and respect for Jared Verse and, his future. They didn't want to give Jared Verse up, but when asked about it, Sean McVay said, obviously, this was an upgrade. And I want to say 60% of offensive line units double teaming him the most when you have a guy like Myles Garrett on the other side. And when it comes to just game planning, you have to game plan for what Myles Garrett is going to do, but not just the defense gets an upgrade. Think about, and I had on my show, my Bleav in Rams show with Rob Havenstein, who just recently retired, and he's got a great finger on the pulse when it comes to, his perspective and lens. So freshly retired from the Rams, being there for 11 years, being on the offensive line. We had Ryan Wendell, the offensive line coach, on our show yesterday, just to kind of even get a sense of how coaches were feeling about all of this. I mean, it was pretty on the down low, and it sounded like sort of this was being in motion before the draft, but obviously nothing was really talked about. Les Snead during the press conference said he sort of did some checking in, nothing official, which again just lends itself to why Les Snead is such an innovative GM. You think this is something that just can't possibly happen, but then these guys get it done. The Rams just are unconventional. They don't go to the combine. They prefer to, evaluate game tape and keep their guys on home base and maybe send some people out to the combine, but they just, their ethos is defiantly original, and they really stand by that. But when we had Ryan Wendell on, the Rams offensive line unit last season allowed the fewest, tied, but the fewest sacks allowed, keeping Matthew Stafford upright, only getting sacked 23 times. Think about now how much more of an upgrade, not just the defense, but now the offense going up against a Myles Garrett every day in practice not only elevates the defense, but it's such a great challenge for the Rams offense and their offensive line unit. I asked Ryan Wendell, how do you even build on what you guys did last year? He said, you start over again, but you obviously you have the retirement of Havenstein. But for the most part, that offensive line unit is pretty much the same. They were all in lockstep last season. And now to face a Myles Garrett every day in practice, just to me, it just goes to show this team is going to fire on all cylinders. And then you have the rumors of Aaron Donald. I mean, I think it's one thing after another when it comes to what this team can get done. And before I would say, absolutely no way would Donald come back. But I mean, I guess now at this point, anything is possible.
Yeah. What sort of likelihood, I guess the quote that I saw that came from Jordan Schultz is that if Donald can find the fire in him, that he'll do it. I think probably the fire will come a little bit from compensation and how well his body responds to, like, obviously training is not an issue for an Aaron Donald, but training for train wrecks every 40 seconds is a different type of training. What likelihood do you give an Aaron Donald return?
It's a good question, Jess. I think there's a couple of things to ponder. So what Aaron Donald is now 35 years old, still, and Sean McVay was asked at the press conference, because again, we as media like to float around concepts and rumors and make it nice and dramatic. I mean, that's why we love football, right? It's like the soap opera for us, but it's real. And so the likelihood of Aaron Donald being able to return was discussed last year. And when we held a press conference for Aaron Donald last season, he said, absolutely no way. He's busier now than he was when he was playing. But now you have a Myles Garrett back And to me, I think the most important point to think about when we discuss an Aaron Donald return is, sure, he says he'd love to come back if he can find the fire. I mean, imagine him getting paired alongside a Myles Garrett and what that could mean for opposing offenses. But I think at the end of the day, Aaron Donald is such an elite, high motor, he's like excellence. Everything about him is excellence. I think really at the end of the day, the big thing is, does he have it in him where he would feel like he would be effective for the team? And it's not just, does he have the, he's a physically imposing guy. I think the only way Donald comes back is if he really feels he is up to game ready shape. He can still play at the elite level. And like you mentioned, and what was said, and of course, Pat McAfee has been talking about it. Does he have the fire, and does he really think he can positively impact the team? I think that for Aaron Donald is really the thing he's probably weighing at home is, will I positively, now being off, out of practice, or certainly not in game performance the last 2 seasons, I think he's going to probably weigh, does he actually have a real ability to make a strong impact the way an Aaron Donald of the past can do for the Rams? And and if he believes that, and we do, I mean, we've seen what he can do. Sean McVay would love to have him back. I think then he'd really seriously consider it.
Yeah, I could see a role where, obviously no longer the full-time player, but coming in much like say 2015, Dwight Freeney signed with the Cardinals mid-season, came in and basically only was in the game for pass rushing situations and had 8 sacks over the final half of that season. I could see, like, with the players that they already have, they don't need Aaron Donald to be an every down player, but putting Myles Garrett, Aaron Donald, Braden Fisk, Byron Young, Kobe Turner in a rotation for passing downs would be trouble for any opposing offense. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, and exactly, that's, think about what we were just talking about. I mean, double teaming Myles Garrett, and then you throw in an Aaron Donald. When I was speaking with Ryan,
Aaron Donald against one-on-ones.
That's right. Exactly. And I think that's the biggest thing that Aaron Donald, who hasn't been playing for the past 2 seasons, is like, hey, if I really can make this team better, impact this team, and be the Aaron Donald of old in some way, I imagine he would totally do it. I mean, look at where Super Bowl is this year. You get to play with Stafford, Devontae, and the sight of the big game is in your backyard. It would be I can only imagine the conversations behind closed doors being had with Aaron Donald and his wife, Erica Donald. She was there last season at the press conference, very supportive. It just seems like Donald, at this point in his life, wants to spend a lot of time with his family, his kids. He's got young kids. But gosh, could you imagine like running out of SoFi in the tunnel and like the crowd, the LA crowd? I mean, and think about this too, Jess. I'm from Los Angeles. I grew up here, born and raised. So we haven't had a team in LA. I mean, you think about it, the Rams are a newer team. Like, they've been here since 2016, and they're still trying to invigorate a market that for so long, and young fans generationally have been obsessed with the Lakers and the Dodgers. To me, this feels like another opportunity that the Rams would absolutely love when it comes to like evoking passion in their young community and in a guy like Aaron Donald. But again, like I said, I think if Aaron Donald really feels like he can impact this team and make game-changing plays like the Aaron Donald of old, that's going to be a hard to turn down if the SoFi home game, Lombardi Trophy, and it's all on the line. I'm sure he's having some thought-provoking conversations about his return.
I bet. One final question to ask. This is obviously a sort of all-in move for the Rams in 2026, much like they pulled the all-in moves in 2021, and it paid off with the championship, getting Von Miller and Matthew Stafford. If this season doesn't end in a championship, is it viewed as do you think that this trade to get Garrett, if it doesn't pay off with the championship this year or next year, depending on what Matthew Stafford's future is, will it be viewed as a sort of failure, do you think?
It's a great question to ask, but to me, I look at what the Rams did and what they're doing and how they've done it consecutively. Like, they're like rebuilding and yet contending every single season. To me, I think how Les Snead and Sean McVay viewed last year as they're all in. They really tried, of course, there were some issues in the secondary, and they thought they really had an opportunity to go all the way. And ultimately, they ended up losing in the NFC Championship game to the Seahawks. But they viewed last season, if they don't win the Super Bowl, the Rams are not happy. That's the biggest and the most important priority. So they're looking every season as an opportunity to go all the way and to win the Super Bowl. So yes, would they deem this year a failure? I don't see that as any different than any other season when you have Les Snead and Sean McVay as the leaders of the team. They are looking to go all the way every single season. So yes, this year, just like years of old, but last year too, if they didn't go to the Super Bowl, if they don't win the Super Bowl, I'm imagining they don't feel like they've achieved what they can. And I believe last year they should have been going to the Super Bowl. At least they, to me, seemed like the better team in moments. But at the end of the day, the Seahawks ended up winning. And now they've learned from that. And they're hopefully not going to let it happen again.
It would make for a potential storybook ending for Matthew Stafford if they win this year. Well, and let's be honest, it might end up being Stafford and McVay. McVay, flirted with the idea of going to television a few years ago. So things could change drastically a year from now. But until then, Erin, thank you so much for the time. As we get some insight to our NFC West rival Rams, the NFC West, which is a beast of three great teams, with the Rams now the favorite to win the Super Bowl, win the NFC West, and then our Cardinals, who are in their own kind of stratosphere of not as good. You can find Erin's work with Rod Havenstein on the Bleav on Rams podcast. It's the sister show to this network, not directly related to the Bleav in Cardinals podcast, which Blake Murphy hosts, but part of the same network. Erin, thanks so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Yeah, Jess, thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Have a wonderful rest of your day.
And that wraps up this edition of the Rise of Sierra podcast, the best of Cardinals Talk of the Web. We just finished episode 787. Seth and I will be back next week as the Cardinals start mandatory minicamp. There'll be more stories, more offseason news, more things to talk about. But until then, I'm Jess Root. Thanks for listening as always. We'll be back again soon.
Thanks for listening to the latest edition of the Rise Up, See Red podcast. Listen to previous episodes and subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, Audioboom, or many other podcast platforms so shows are delivered directly to your mobile device. Please give the show a 5-star rating and always support the sponsors who support the show. We'll be back soon for the best hour of Cardinals talk on the web. Rise up, Red Sea, be red, see red, and of course, Rise up, see red.